Yes, sir. So we can call to order them.
All right, it is 6:02. Going to call the CIAC meeting to order. Do we have a quorum?
We do, yes, sir. And then we'll also call the planning and zoning
And we'll,
to order us.
and at the same time, 6:02, we'll planning and zoning.
And we do have a quorum for that as well. Moving on to item 3, public comment. I do not have any public comment forms at this time. So moving on to 4A, to discuss, consider, and take any necessary action regarding approval of minutes of the Joint Planning and Zoning Commission and Capital Impact Advisory Committee meeting held August 15th, 2024.
Anybody have anything to discuss, add, or comments?
No, but I'll move that we approve
Great,
the
I have,
minutes of the prior meeting.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. All right, motion passes.
On to item 4B, to discuss, consider, and take any necessary action regarding impact fees report on projects and funds. Ryan was perfect.
All right, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Capital Impact Advisory Committee. So you might have remembered that in periods past, you've been receiving presentation on the CIAC biannual or semi-annual, presentation on the status of impact fees from Josue Flores, who's the project engineer from Public Works. We did a little bit of restructuring, and from now on, I will be providing the reports and giving the presentation on the impact fees. So that's why I'm here tonight giving our February 2025 report on the status of our impact fees. So, as you know, the purpose of this presentation is to provide updates to this group on the impact fee funds, projects being using impact fee funds, and also the status of each of the funds as far as their balance and future anticipated expenses. And the overall goal is to meet transparency goals in providing the public means of understanding and learning about how these impact fees are being used, and also, of course, complying with state law by providing this semi-annual report. So we're just going to jump right into it. The report that I'll be referencing is in your packet. The first of the 3 impact fees funds that we will be discussing is the roadway impact fees. Again, for the benefit of the public, impact fees are one-time fees that we collect for residential and non-residential projects to pay for large-scale capital improvements to increase capacity of our various infrastructure systems to accommodate the growth of our community. So roadway impact fees, of course, goes to the construction and expansion of the roadway system to provide for the circulation needs of our community. Currently, we are working on a couple of different projects that are using roadway impact fees in order to construct. First is North Bend Payne. This is a $3.3 million project. It's between CD Boren and State Highway 66. Happily, as you have seen, that project is just about completed. There's a little bit of street lights and landscaping work to be done, but the intersection is open. The traffic signals that we were waiting on have been activated. Of course, there's some timing improvements that need to be done there, but otherwise the project is complete, and we will have safer conditions at that intersection. The other major project that roadway impact fees is using is an expansion of Miss May Drive. There's a related zoning case tonight that kind of ties to that as well, but this is overall about a $6.5 million project, all costs considered, to expand Miss May Drive from its existing terminus at Prince Lane up to FM 552 to accommodate anticipated traffic demands for the opening of the new Worthy Fate High School up on the north side of 552. So we're actually at about 90% design. It says completed, but we're still working on the 90% design of this roadway. We've acquired all of the property necessary for the city's portion of the project. And we're doing this in partnership with the Roy City ISD and the county. They're actually providing cost share and coordination assistance for this project. We're actually partnering with Roy City ISD to implement the roadway construction, not only for Miss May Drive, but portions of North King Road, north of 552, which is a required improvement for the school. So it's all going to be done as one package rather than two separate projects. So overall, this fund is in good shape. You can see here, again, this is exhibit from the packet. We are looking good as far as our anticipated expenses when compared to the existing fund balance and revenues. We do have a number of projects where we are going to be applying credits to future collections based on public infrastructure that has been constructed by developers. So, you know, for example, Avondale over there on 66 and Ben Payne has constructed a portion of Wood Creek Boulevard. That's something that we would have had to construct ourselves in the future. So because they built it, we're crediting some of those fees back to them to offset some of the costs that they incurred in constructing that road. Moving on to water impact fees, a couple of projects that we're working on using the impact fees for water is the construction of Pump Station 3. Now, Pump Station 3 is way more than $1.5 million, but there are some special other funds that actually pay for the construction. The $1.5 million is really basically for the design, inspections, and some other auxiliary costs for the project, which is about 75% complete at this point. And so we're anticipating this to be wrapped up here in the next few months. Another project is Rochelle Road water line. There's a currently, I believe, 4-inch water line in Rochelle Road just south of I-30 going down to the Gettysburg Boulevard. That needs to be upsized to accommodate the circulation of water in that part of the city. So we're using some of the impact fees that we've collected to pay for that water line upgrade, as well as repaving of Rochelle Road after the water line is improved. We've acquired the easements necessary, and we're initiating the project right now. So after fund balance and anticipated revenues and that expense for the Rochelle water line, we still have about $1.85 million in our future fund balance throughout the fiscal year. And once again, we do identify the projects that are going to be credited back to developers. So that essentially is a deferred or offset future revenues. It's not actually something that's coming out of the cash flow in the fund now. It basically just means that we won't collect as much as we would have in the future because we're crediting back to those developers. And finally, the sewer impact fees. We're using sewer impact fees right now to pay off a very large debt of our proportionate share of the Sabine Creek Wastewater Treatment Facility out in Royce City. That is the only wastewater treatment plant that serves all of Fate. So all of our wastewater goes to that one facility, and they've expanded their capacity, I believe, to 7 million gallons a day. And we have a certain percentage of that expansion, which we share with Royce City. And so for FY25, our contribution share is $1.32 million. And every year it's recalculated based on the growth of the respective cities. We're also working with the developer of Montera. They needed to upgrade some city sewer mains to accommodate the additional capacity needs of this portion of the sewer system. And so we have a reimbursement agreement with them so that as they pay the fees, we basically pay them back based on the cost of this project. So here's actually a photo of them upgrading that line, which is a pretty impressive project there. So once again, we have the breakdown. We have quite a bit of fund balance left, but again, we have a huge liability in our payment for that Sabine Creek Wastewater Treatment Facility. So we're expecting that, you know, it's going to have a place to go eventually. So it's good that we have that balance to take care of those anticipated expenses. So that's basically my presentation. We wanted to kind of go over those three funds. I'm happy to take any questions you might have on this item.
I don't have any questions about what you presented, but in general, Ryan, could you speak to FATE's impact fees? I foolishly engaged with someone on social media who was insisting that we didn't have any and we needed to get some. And then when he did seem convinced that we have them, then everybody jumped on, yeah, but they're too low. And that's not my understanding of FATE's impact fees. But if you could speak to just how we compare to nearby
Sure.
municipalities.
I can give my impression. So the way that our impact fees are calculated is based on a capital improvement project list, what the city thinks needs to be built in order to accommodate the growth in the future. So in the water system, in the sewer system, and the road system, what do we need to build in order to stay on top of the demands in the future? And we take all those costs, we calculate it out against our future growth projections, and we basically come up with a per unit cost. So for every house, they need to contribute this amount of money to each of those funds so that we can pay for the infrastructure. So the infrastructure kind of comes concurrently, but sometimes lags a little bit behind because we have to collect the money to pay for the infrastructure as it comes in. We routinely tell developers our impact fees are higher than a lot of other cities. We've compared our impact fees to a lot of other cities of a similar size, generally on the east side of the Metroplex. We're on the higher side. Every time we adopt a new impact fee structure, we show the city council our comparison, and we generally tend to be on the higher side. So we're confident that through the impact fee collection, we're paying for the infrastructure. We're covering those costs, but it takes time because those costs are collected from private development. That's what pays for the infrastructure here. Does that answer your question, Karen?
I hope the doubters listen, but yes, it does. I've always had confidence in how we did it, but many seem to be confused about it. So thank you. I appreciate it.
I will just say, a lot of work and thought goes into calculating these fees. It isn't just off the cuff. It's a very structured and thoughtful process.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you, Ryan. All right, so it is 6:15, and we will close the Capital Impact Advisory Committee. We just need a motion and a second. Okay, thank you. So can I get a motion?
A motion to adjourn the Capital Impact Advisory Committee meeting.
I'll second it.
We got a second?
On to item 6A, to discuss, consider, and take any necessary action regarding approval of minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held December 19th, 2024.
I move to approve the minutes from the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held December 19th, 2024.
I'll second.
Motion passes.
Item 7A, this is an application for approval of a zoning change request from agriculture to general commercial to allow for retail development, case number ZR 24-013.
Okay, so this is the first of three action items on tonight's agenda. Again, my name is Ryan Wells, Director of Planning and Development Services, and I'll be giving the staff presentation on this. I do know that the applicant is here tonight, so they'll have an opportunity to share some thoughts or provide any supplemental information following my presentation. So we're calling this the Gulf Coast Retail. It's a zoning request, project ID ZR24013. So this is a zoning request to change the property from zonings from agriculture to general commercial. That is because the applicant is, I believe, currently under contract on this property, and they wish to construct some highway serving commercial adjacent to the large commercial node just north in Lafayette Crossing. So this is a group that's participating in the development in this larger site, and this additional property would kind of tie into and be supportive of the larger commercial development in Lafayette Crossing. So they're requesting general commercial because it's right on the highway and it supports the development type envisioned by the applicant. Here's a map of the property. Again, the large brown blob around it is Lafayette Crossing. It's a planned development, a mixed-use development. Just south is I-30. So this is a single 3.257 acre lot. Again, currently zoned agriculture, fully surrounded by Lafayette Crossing to the north and west, and then I-30 eastbound frontage road to the south and to the east. So with a zoning request, there are three criteria that we look at: whether it meets the comprehensive plan and other plans, whether it complements the character of the surrounding neighborhood, and whether there are any other factors required or allowed by Texas law or case law. So in general, this seems to be the wrong number here, I'm sorry about that. In general, the future land use plan, as indicated by the image on the right, it falls under the mixed use center plan district. And I will say that in the comprehensive plan, general commercial zoning is not one of the representative zoning districts for the mixed use center district. However, if you look at the complementary uses in the general commercial zone, they really kind of support similar uses. And what we wanted to do in recommending approval of this general commercial zoning was that the focus would be on commercial. And the general commercial zone only allows really for commercial uses outright and doesn't have a factor of multifamily or mixed use or anything like that. Given the location right on the off-ramp and the adjacency to another commercial node, we thought this would be the most complementary zoning district for this location. There's also general commercial right across the highway and further to the east and to the west. So we're looking at a kind of compatible presence along the north side of the highway for this zone. And there are no other factors that are really raised up from Texas law or case law that we were concerned about when we were looking at this. So we did send out a public notice to the big parcel next to it, because 200 feet doesn't get you across the highway, and that's the radius for public notice. We, of course, also published the notice in the newspaper as is required. And so as of this afternoon, we didn't receive any responses either for or against, but we did send out the required public notices. So we did run a financial analysis on this based on some assumptions we had to make, because, of course, with a straight zoning, you don't have to submit a site plan. You don't have to submit really detailed plans on what you want to do. Instead, basically asking, can I have this zoning? But we still want to evaluate what the potential is for this kind of project. So what we did, we took similar highway, general commercial zoning, zoned properties in the vicinity and looked at the financial performance of those and kind of used it as a comparison on what could happen here. So in general, we expect that you could have a taxable value of development of around $3 million on a property of this size, which would mean, based on our property tax rate, a year one contribution of $28,000 and change, if you combine that with the a sales tax revenue. The proportionate cost for the city to serve this property would be about $11,000. And so the annual project net revenue, when you're taking all the costs and all the revenues together, including any of the road costs, will be about $17,000. So it's a net positive from a fiscal productivity standpoint. Over 40 years, we're looking at nearly $700,000 in revenues. And the ratio, the revenue to cost ratio with roads considered is about 2.6 to 1. That's primarily because it's on the highway, which is not our financial responsibility. And so again, there's no public roads that are falling within the city's fiscal responsibility that we considered in the cost analysis. So with that, staff do recommend approval without any conditions of the proposed zoning change. I'm happy to take questions now or after the applicant and public hearing.
I do have one question. So obviously, we don't know what the adjacent site looks like behind it. And one of the things we have to take into consideration is, like, does it fit in with the neighborhood surrounding? Is that something that we would take into consideration, not knowing where the multi-use housing and things like that were going for Lafayette Crossing for this decision? Because we don't know kind of where that's going, the houses and the apartments versus the commercial are going to sit for Lafayette Crossing. And absent of having that knowledge, can we move forward not knowing what the surrounding neighborhood directly around that is going to
Well,
be?
I guess it would have been helpful to have the concept plan for Lafayette Crossing up for you guys to see, but essentially, everything to the north of this parcel is commercial. It's your standard commercial. We can't divulge any more than that right now, but it will be compatible. It'll actually be complementary, and it probably will blend in to the effect that you wouldn't really know that this is a different property. It's intended to complement the larger commercial piece. To the west, that's when we do get into some highway serving commercial, and then to the northwest is where the multifamily starts. So you're really going to be surrounded by commercial uses on just about all sides.
That's what I just wanted to make sure, because I wasn't here for the approval, so I don't have that memorized in my head to know what it looks like. So thank you for that information.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I'll hold any of mine until after the public hearing. So does the applicant have a presentation?
I don't believe they have a presentation, but they're present, so I'll let them come up.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Michael Clark. I'm with Winkleman & Associates, 6750 Hillcrest Plaza, Suite 215, Dallas 75230. Here representing Gulf Coast Retail, or Gulf Coast Real Estate, pardon me, for this zoning request. Ryan, would it be possible to bring up just any of the drawings? And I can perhaps explain just a little bit better what's anticipated here. The client I'm representing tonight is also under contract for the piece of property. Basically, if you take the apex of the triangle and run it straight north, yes, right there, they basically are under contract. So this will it doesn't square it up, but it makes it contiguous and it makes it much easier to develop, much more regular shapes. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I don't have any questions as of yet. Any of their board? Okay.
I have one, if I may. I know it's still not time when we can know what's coming, but without naming names, is it a donut shop or a daycare?
Well, what I can say is the tract to the north of the triangle is roughly 25 acres. So coupled with this 3, it's 28 acres. So it's significantly more than just that.
I've just been amazed by some of the things that just don't generate any sales tax revenue in Texas, like donuts. That was new to me, so I thought I'd ask.
I didn't know
Hopefully,
that.
it would be a revenue-generating piece of commercial property.
I'm speaking a little bit out of turn. I'm an engineer. I'm not a developer or landowner. However, the people that we're working with on this are not going to develop something of this magnitude without it being a tax generator.
I will add in, I did look up some background of some of the companies that are involved with this. And if you go to their website, and if it's anything close to some of the projects they have done on their website, I think we're sitting in pretty good shape.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, it is 6:27. We'll open up the public hearing.
I do not have any public comment forms at this time.
All right, it is 6:27. We will close the public hearing. Discuss. Any questions? Take any recommendations?
I will happily make a motion that we approve case ZR 24013.
I will second.
We have a second. And it passes. Thank you.
On to 7B. This is an application for a Type 3 site plan for a new self-storage facility, case number SP-24-014.
Go away. There we go. Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Robbie Highfield. I'm the Senior Planner for the City of Fate. I'll be giving the staff presentation for 5-Star Storage Fate, project ID SP-24014. Here's the location. It's south of the eastbound I-30 frontage road on the west side of Industrial Drive. The project's a 155,400 square foot, 3-story self-storage facility. This is a Type 3 site plan. While normally site plans are reviewed administratively, Type 3s do get elevated. The reason this is a Type 3 is there are 2 variance requests associated with this development. Those variances applying to Fate UDO Article 5, subsection 5.2.3 regarding parking, and Article 5, subsection 5.4.3, 3D4A for windows and transparency. Their first variance request is to decrease the amount of parking required under our ordinance from 50 spaces to 22 spaces. The reason for that request is 50 spaces is over their anticipated demand. 22 spaces is what they're requesting, and it meets their needs. And they state they don't anticipate any more than 10 people on site at one time, so the 22 spaces is plenty. Their second variance request is to waive the requirement for ground floor transparency by not requiring windows. So our ordinance requires, I believe, 40% opacity on the ground floor. They're requesting that be waived due to the use. State if they made the ground floor opaque to meet our code, it would reveal the corrugated metal roll-up doors inside that the storage facility is going to have. So their alternative proposal is to provide a opaque, enhanced facade using architectural features as an alternative. So the property is a 3-acre lot on Industrial Drive. It's recently been replatted. It's currently zoned industrial. You you may recall that our December I believe it came to you guys in November, a zoning and SUP request. This is the next step of that process. It abuts Painter's Solution to the north, Industrial Drive to the east, MedTech Construction on the south, and American Bobtail on the west. So the approval criteria for a Type 3 site plan is very long. For the sake of time, I'm not going to read it out, but I'll summarize each point. It needs to comply with all ordinances and design criteria and construction standards, apply with the configuration of public improvements, meet all federal and state regulations, meet any MUD agreements or interlocal agreements with the county. If the decision body, that being you and council, have conditions, those are able to be applied. The next page, it needs to meet the comp plan, needs to meet the purpose of the zoning district, needs to be creative and increase standards over our typical city standards. Streets need to be adequate, and I'm sorry, it's small on the screen. The development needs to provide adequate open space per the zoning district standards. So the approval, it's undergone 2 reviews, and with the proposed conditions staff has, it'll comply with the UDO and design criteria. The civils are to be reviewed administratively. There is floodplain on the property, and it was addressed on the replat. We have a condition that will require all vertical structures to be outside of the floodplain. There's no interlocal agreements or MUDs to consider. The future land use plan is Business and Innovation Center. This type of use is supported, and obviously has come, the SUP and zoning have been approved last year in December. The variances, after staff review, are compatible with adopted plans and policies, and the open space requirement is met. Because there's a public hearing, we did send out public notice for this and published it in the newspaper. You can see that map here. 7 notices were sent out, and we haven't received any responses. Is that blowing it up on your screen or just mine?
Maybe try exiting out the presentation.
Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. I just can't read it. It keeps on going to this. Displays that. Much better. Helps me present if I can actually see what I'm trying to tell you. Okay, where are we? Fiscals. So as you know, we do fiscal analysis for almost all our development projects. These numbers are actually updated from the ones you saw. We got updated numbers from the developer after it came in front of you guys. So I did want to point all of these out again. That the estimated tax value is actually $10.28 million. The year 1 contribution to the city is just over $20,000. The total proportionate cost is about $6,600. The annual net revenue with roads is $9,631. Over 40 years, this is a gain of $548,000 When you factor roads in, it's a gain of $385,000. The revenue to cost ratio is 3.1 to 1. So for every $3.10, for every $1 to serve, we make $3.10 in return. When you factor in roads, that goes down to 1.9, but it's still a net positive. And the private to public ratio is 63.1. Some of you may remember we used to use that, where 40 to 1 was the goal we were looking for. And it'll take about 9 years to repay. So staff is recommending approval with conditions. Those conditions being that a remote 5-inch NOx locking cap, FDC, that is not building mounted and is within 50 feet of a fire hydrant shall be required. This shall be revised on the site plan and submitted for review at the time civil plans are submitted. The inside turn radius of the fire lane shall be marked as 30 feet on the site plan. This shall be revised on the site plan and submitted for review at the time civils are submitted. And 3, the dumpster enclosure shall be moved further east to avoid encroachment of the floodplain. This shall be revised on the site plan and submitted at review at the time civils are submitted. 4, Glossalia, one of the plants proposed, is not permitted. The plant shall be replaced with a plant from the approved plant list, FATE Unified Development Ordinance, Article 9, Table 9.2-1, approved plant list. This shall be revised on the site plan and submitted for review at the time civil plans are submitted. Landscape island end caps are required at the terminus of each row of parking. The parking layout shall be revised as needed to include the necessary end caps. This shall be revised on the site plan and submitted for review at the time civil plans are submitted. And approval of the site plan does not indicate approval of the grading, stormwater, or sewer plans. These shall be reviewed separately and must be approved prior to submittal of a building permit application and/or commencement of site construction activities. That's it, and I can take questions now, or I believe the applicant is here after their presentation.
I have a question on reducing the parking. What exactly is the reason to, I mean, I understand that you don't plan on having more than 10 people at a time, but are you reducing the size of the actual concrete
Yeah, so
plat? Like, because I would assume that while maybe you don't have more than 10 people visiting, it's a pretty large storage facility. You would have a truck and trailer dropping off, picking up.
right. So our the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 2 that I had pointed to here, the off-street vehicle and bike parking schedule, gives us a formula for calculating the minimum parking required, because FATE has parking minimums, we don't have maximums. For this type of use, when you run the do we have the staff summary easily available? Is that included?
Yeah, I think it was more just kind of wanting to see, is this reducing the size of like your concrete slab, all together? Is that the reason for wanting to reduce the parking?
No, the reason is that they would have almost 20 extra spaces that they don't need to use.
Right,
So-
I understand that you're not going to have that many people all together at one time. But do you have a photo, or the applicant have a photo of what the?
We can let the applicant respond to that.
Yeah, when the applicant presents, they can respond to that. Nothing else?
Any
Thank you.
other questions? No. Okay. Thank you, Robbie. All right, is the applicant here?
Good evening, Brian Baca, Advantage Construction, 2221 Lakeside Boulevard in Richardson, Texas. I don't have a presentation, but I am here to answer questions concerning the site layout. To your question on the parking, if we add those other parks, they're going to have to be extended beyond the outlines of the current pavement. And it would be on the opposite side of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any issues with the staff recommendations?
I do not. We've reviewed those and we can comply.
No other questions? No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. It is 6:42. We'll open up the public hearing.
I do not have any public comment forms.
All right, it is 6:42. We'll close the public hearing. Anyone has anything else to discuss? Any other questions? We'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve case number SP-24-014 with staff recommendations and conditions.
We have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion passes.
On to item 7C. This is an application for approval of a zoning change request from agriculture to residential estate to allow for large lot, single-family development, case number ZR 25-001.
So this final item on our agenda tonight, excuse me, is a proposed rezone of a property located at 644 Prince Lane. The project ID is ZR 25001. Here's a map of the location of the property. You can see it's located at the northern side of the intersection of Miss May Drive and Prince Lane. So currently the property is a single 7.611 acre tract that's owned by the city. We purchased this property along with portions of two other properties in order to facilitate the future extension of Miss May Drive, which I described in the CIAC presentation earlier, which would connect its existing terminus at Prince Lane all the way up to 552, which would provide a direct route for many of the neighborhoods that would be served by the new Worthy Fate High School. This is a project that was on our future transportation plan. It just kind of got bumped up in timing because the high school came in earlier than we were anticipating. So this property has an existing single-family home on it with some accessory structures. This home is going to be demolished in order to facilitate the construction of the road. And so that's why we ended up having to buy the whole property rather than just buying a portion, which we normally would do for the right-of-way. Wood Creek Phase, I think, 9 is to the south. There's some large lot single-family to the northeast and west of the subject property. The request is to change the property from agricultural zoning to residential estate. The intent is to subdivide the balance of the property after the road is basically the right-of-way of the road is set aside into 1 acre single-family residential lots. And that will help us recoup some of the cost of the Miss May extension. The city has no need for a 5 acre parcel in this location. So this is kind of the most productive way that we could figure to offset the significant cost to build this road. So for a rezone, there are 3 criteria, as we discussed before: compatibility with a comprehensive plan and other adopted plans, the character of the surrounding neighborhood, and any other factors required or allowed by Texas law and case law. So the future land use plan designation for this property is currently rural reserve, and the residential estate, it's called rural estate in the comp plan image on the right, but it's renamed residential estate in the new zoning district. It's a representative zoning district for the rural reserve place type, and large lot single family is a representative land use. Again, the residential estate zoning district has a 1 acre minimum lot size. We're anticipating that with the balance of the property, we could support 5 single family homes, single family residential lots with this rezone. So all other surrounding uses are residential. They tend to be on the larger side, the residential lots, to the north, east, and west. To the northeast, there are some similarly sized lots in the High Glen neighborhood, and Wood Creek with the traditional smaller 6,000 and 7,000 square foot suburban lot sizes is located on the south side of Prince Lane. So there's quite a mix. And that third criterion about the Texas law and case law, again, we don't have anything that really rises up that needs to be addressed in this evaluation. So all three of those criteria are met based on staff's evaluation. We did send out public notice to all properties within 200 feet of this subject parcel. We also published the notice in the local newspaper per state law and local code. That meant we sent 17 mailed notices out. We received 0 written responses as of this morning. Oops, excuse me. So we did a little bit of a calculation on this, what a rezone and development of these 5 lots into single-family homes could provide. So based on current market rates for similarly sized lots with homes on them, we determined that the 5 lots would bring a taxable value of about $3 million. The year one contribution to the city for property taxes would be about $6.6 thousand. The proportionate cost to serve, however, because there's so much roadway frontage, is about $17,000 a year, which means that the project net revenue with roads is about negative $17,000. And then the gain or loss over 40 years would be about, negative $700,000. Revenue to cost ratio with roads is 0.27. Private to public ratio is 9.9. Years to repay is over 40 years. So again, this comes back to the understanding that these large, residential lots, they don't pay for themselves, and we recognize that. But we're not trying to propose projects that all pay for themselves on an individual basis. What we do, we have a land use, strategy for the city that allows the city as a whole to stay in the black as different properties develop of different characters, so that general commercial property on I-30, when that develops, that's going to bring in more revenue than it's going to cost. And then projects like this are going to be kind of subsidized to some degree by the nature of their development pattern versus some other development patterns in the city. In addition, this also continues to be compatible with the comprehensive plan, which the rural reserve is generally a less fiscally productive land use category when compared to some of the more interior mixed use and commercial districts. So with those ideas and findings in mind, staff does recommend approval of this proposed zoning change, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
I have a little list here. So this is far enough away from the school that the ISD didn't want this part. This does not abut.
No, not at all. It's about, I believe it's about a half mile of roadway to get up to where the school starts on 552.
And you answered my "why did fate buy this" question.
Yeah, we had to. We had to figure out the right route. We didn't want to have an offset with the existing Miss May, and so when all came together, we did need to purchase this whole property because of the requirement to remove the house to facilitate the construction of the road. I'm kind of bringing Florida experience to Texas, and I just briefly Googled deed restrictions and the like in Texas, but there's only 5 of these, so the negative revenue bothers me less than if there were 355 of them. But could it be considered to have some sort of restrictions of the type of development we want to see there, like a minimum square footage for a home,
or the ability to have an ADU, which really almost doesn't exist in Rockwall County. And I know many people that would like to have a home on an acre or more and have a guest dwelling, not to rent out to strangers, but for their children or their parents, or I don't see people have, there's so many things you can't do the way most of us live in HOA neighborhoods. It just seems like a little opportunity to kind of have a way to perhaps steer what happens on these 5 lots. But horses, ADU, larger homes were some things that came to mind, probably more the domain of mayor council than P&Z, but deed restrictions of, or something. Since you own the land, I would think you could put restrictions on the deeds as you sell them.
Yeah, that would certainly be a decision at the council level. We don't currently have anything in our development code that has, some cities have minimum home sizes for certain zoning districts. We don't do that here. We basically have setbacks and maximum, developed area for the lot. We do allow ADUs outright in every zoning district. Now, whether there's a deed restriction for an HOA, that's something we can't control. But we have no restrictions on accessory dwelling units for any of our residential zones. So just know that that would not be a problem in this case. If somebody wanted to do an ADU, subject of course to the development regulations for ADUs, they could certainly do that.
Analysis. This isn't a road that's being built to facilitate development. The road's coming no matter what. This allows us to recoup our costs of the road. So the analysis, that's absolutely how the analysis works, but that road doesn't not get built if we don't do this development. So while it shows negative, this development only helps the city financially, does not have any negative impact financially, because that road will be there either way. So I just want to make sure that was clear.
That lends to the question that I was actually just about to ask. And this should be probably common knowledge, and I just don't know. This is within city limits, correct?
This property is. There is one property that the road goes through that's actually not in the city, but this property is fully within the city limits.
Okay, I just want to, because that leads to some, basic, calming effect of the fact that we do have ordinances and UDOs and things like that that would have to be followed. And then going with Stephen's, what are the carrying costs if we don't sell this? We're going to have to pay for this road no matter what. Is there a substantial difference between what this is going to cost us over 40 years versus not developing the land?
I think the property itself was, Stephen, was it 1.2? Yeah. We had to pay $1.2 million to acquire this 7 acres with a house on it. Mm-hmm. That certainly was more than we wanted to pay, but that's what it came out to. So, and then the project, the road itself is over $5 million to build. So we either sit there with 5 acres that cost us $1.2 million, or if we have 5 1-acre lots that are served by a road, that are served by water, at least we can do something to recoup and pay back that fund that can be used then for subsequent project down the road. That's the whole idea. Otherwise, we're sitting on an agricultural zone property that we could sell by itself, but it's not going to have the same kind of value as a subdivided. Again, still a very large lot, very in tune with the character of the area, but you have 5 lots to sell rather than just 1.
That's the exact information that I was looking for, so thank you.
You're welcome.
The intent, though, would be 1 lot at a time sold. There's no bundling these 5 together.
It could be either way. If we have a good builder that wanted to buy all 5 and we thought it would be a benefit to the community, we could certainly do that. We're not tying our own hands by saying we have to sell to 5 different entities or whatnot.
It's interesting. This is an interesting little.
We don't have any more questions, so I'll open up the public hearing.
I do not have any public comment forms.
All right, so it's 6:57. We'll close the public hearing. Any further discussion or take a motion then?
I'll move that we approve case number ZR 25-001.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Motion passes.
Item 8, Director of Planning and Development Services, report announcements pertaining to city activities, upcoming events, future legislative activities, and other matters related thereto.
Not too much, just tomorrow is the Focus North Texas one-day conference in Dallas, and Commissioner Levinsky is going to be joining us, so thank you for making yourself available to that. All of our staff are going to be attending. It should be really good. It's focused, of course, as it has to be, on the tremendous growth that this area is experiencing and how different communities are responding to that, how the real estate community is responding to that. So that should be really interesting. If anything really, pops up, we'll be sure to share it with y'all. And then, of course, the legislative session is currently underway. There are a number of interesting land use related bills being submitted and proposed. So I would encourage you to take a look at the Texas Municipal League website that actually has a list of those bills, just so you can kind of see what might be coming down the line for how cities are going to have to adapt, because they're certainly going to have to adapt based on what we're seeing. But that's about it. We're looking forward to the conference, and we will see if there's something in March for y'all. We don't see that there might not be actually a P&Z meeting in March, but we'll let you know as we get closer. Our submittals don't seem to indicate that there will be a meeting in March.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion passes.